Hello everyone, I'm absolutely delighted to be joined with Andy Workman. I've known yourself, Andy, for quite a number of years now. I first met Andy in the Isborne when he was doing a talk. Andy is a former police officer, and when he retired he moved into solution focused hypnotherapy, which is slightly different hypnotherapy from what I do. And he's also author of this wonderful book, so we'll give a shout out about this and what you will find in it throughout this live. So it's absolutely fantastic, and there'll also be opportunity for Andy to mention about him stuff. And I do apologise, the first time ever I've left the sound on, which is such a professional start. But talking about being a professional start, Andy truly is a professional. Now, I've seen lots of people give talks and presentations, but I don't think I've ever said this to you before, Andy, but you're actually one of the people that I model when I put myself out to do a talk, because they're so engaging, your talks, so fascinating, and you can actually see people hanging on to your every word. So I just absolutely love the talk. So if anybody can get an opportunity to see Andy live, then I highly recommend it. David Hamilton, who is absolutely fantastic, always says, you know, you are a hard act to follow as well. We're going to be talking about family and friends. However, throughout this entire live, I'm aware that Andy's got such knowledge and in his brilliant book that I could probably fit you in any of the sections on the Wheel of Life. So, Andy, in your book, you actually go into how you got into hypnotherapy, and you said you didn't want to just go into normal life. Can you just explain a little bit about that before we go into the family and friends, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, firstly, can I say good evening to everybody? Secondly, can I tell you that the check's in the post, because you're just a superb publicist for me. Thank you so much. You're so kind, and I really do appreciate everything you said. But it's very kind of you. Yeah, I was a police officer from the age of 17. I did 3 years with the Royal Air Force Police, and then I left there to join the Civil Police. And so when I came to retire, I was going to be 48. And I decided that actually I didn't want to go back into the police service in any way. I didn't want to be that person that turned into the old curmudgeon in the corner saying, "No, it was never like that in my day." So rather than turn myself into that, I decided that at 48 I could do a completely different career. And I had no idea what I was going to do. And then, funnily enough, I was still trying to get myself promoted within the police service just to be able to boost my pension like everybody else does. And I could not pass my exams. I could not pass my promotion. I tried and tried. And it wasn't through lack of effort. Hopefully, it wasn't through lack of understanding. It was stage fright. And every time I walked into the exam room, I went to pieces. Luckily, my brother Nigel, I've got the one younger brother, he wanted to lose a bit of weight, and he went to see a hypnotherapist. And that hypnotherapist was so effective that the weight just fell off my brother. And in actual fact, I can proudly say that the anniversary of his very first treatment with that hypnotherapist just so happened, the very anniversary of it, he ran the New York Marathon some 4 stone later. So I approached my brother and said, "Do you think he could do something about my stage fright for my exams?" And he said, "Well, you can but ask him." So I went along and had some sessions with him, and I passed that exam. Not only did this is not a big-headed moment. Not only did I pass the exam, I came 24th in the country. So it just proved that actually I could do it, but I just needed to tell myself that I could. And with a hypnotherapist's help, I did that. So I was so taken by that I decided that at some point I would try to learn to be a hypnotherapist myself, so I could offer some people the same monumental sort of help you can get. And just by chance, I fell across the fantastic training with the Clifton Practice Hypnotherapy training in Bristol. And some 12 years ago now, I signed up for their course and became a solution-focused hypnotherapist. I haven't looked back. So I qualified 7 years before I left. And then I did get my promotion. And when I got promoted into a really negative and stressed situation in the way of the department I was working in, I went to the very top of the tree and spoke to the chief superintendent there and said, can I possibly help you in any way, try and reduce people's stress levels? It's the sickness level in this department is crippling. And he took me up on it. Bless him. He was a broad-minded gentleman. He took me up on it. I created a presentation about how you can keep your mindset more positive and stop yourself getting stressed. And as a result of that, I called it Cavemen Polar Bears. And I delivered that. And I was asked to deliver it elsewhere as well. And a little old lady one day said to me, have you written that down somewhere? And I said, no. And while I'm on that subject, I believe sometimes people talk about angels walking the face of the earth and how you meet certain people for certain reasons. And I have met a number of people who I've never met again in my life. They've had no reason to walk into my life at any moment in time, but they've had such a stupendous effect on me that I think is probably one of those angels that we're talking about. Whether that's a religious or a holy angel, or whether it's just somebody that's sent you when you need them, I don't know. But this little old lady was one of them, and she came up to me at the end of one of my talks, and she said, I just need to thank you for that. She said, that was amazing. I said, well, thank you very much. And I didn't dismiss her, but, I just thanked her for it. And she said, whoa. She said, have you written it down anywhere? And I said, no, I haven't. She said, you must do that. And again, I didn't dismiss her, but I just said, oh, okay, I'll think about that one day. And she grabbed hold of my arm, and she said to me, you're not listening to me, young man. She said, you need to write that book. And she gave me a hug. She literally picked me, wrapped her arms around me and gave me a hug. And as she stepped back, she said, you're the first person in 40 years of depression that's told me, one, how I got depressed, and two, what I can do about it. So you write that book, young man, and I'll be the first in the queue to buy it. And when I got to be careful, because you know me too well, Paul. I choke too well. I'm an emotional lump.
I am too, so it's fine. We'll cry together, Andy.
Exactly. At that moment in time, when I managed to hold back the lump that she'd managed to put in my throat, I just said, I'll see what I can do. And I went home and started that afternoon. So bless her, she's the reason why I wrote Cavemen Polar Bears. And if only I knew who she was, and it's 12 years ago now, God willing, she's still with us somewhere. But blimey, I'd give her a free copy. Never mind queuing the first in the queue to buy it. So yeah, so that's a potted history of how I've ended up where I am now.
Amazing. I just want to say hello to a few people. So Claire is with us. Hello to you. Sam is with us. Richard, who is my uncle, is with us. Tracy, there's also two others watching. I can't see who they are. Lana's watching, Dave is watching, and I've got a couple of people who said that. Claire says, wow, that's amazing. Sam, oh, bless you, Sam, said, I see Paul as an earth angel. Hug, respect for Paul. Thank you so much, Sam. It's lovely to hear that.
Here.
Thank you, Andy. And same to you, Sam, and the same to Andy. And also as well, Lana said, earth angels are real. Paul's one. Oh, thank you, Lana. That's really, really kind of you to say that. So we're talking about family and friends at the moment, and there's so many stories that we can get into. The one, as we're talking about choking up, I think I'll go into it, because I was doing the filming for this and I actually felt a lump in my throat as you were telling me, because having that connection with family and friends. We also probably talk a little bit if you don't have the connection and what you can do. And also I think sometimes Christmas is, I love Christmas, but it can be a lonely time for people as well. So we'll mention a little bit about that. But the first thing I want to sort of say is how the mind and body affect each other, and the relationship a lady had with her father, the adopted father, because she was adopted, and weight loss. I think that's such an incredible story. So are you happy to share it with us here?
Yeah, by all means. Yeah, I'm glad you pointed out which one it was. So the wonderful lady that I dealt with was, I'll point out straight away that she was the wife of a colleague, and I met her a couple of times, but only in passing at social events. And that becomes a little bit relevant in a second. But anyway, she came to me and asked if I could help her. She said that she was to lose a little bit of weight. She wasn't a particularly big lady in by any measure, and size to me doesn't matter anyway, but she just said that she just needed to lose a little bit of weight to feel more comfortable in her own skin. And I get that one. Goodness me, I get that. So she came to me and she said, I can tell you why I eat biscuits every day. And I said, well, luckily, because I'm solution focused, you don't need to tell me anything. You're more than welcome to do so, but I'm not analytical. I don't need to know your background or anything like that. She said, well, I think it might help you if you did know the backstory. Said, okay. She said, well, I'm adopted. And she said, that's not actually a big problem. She said, I've never had any doubt about being adopted. She said, my mum and dad told me from day one that I was not their birth girl. In actual fact, she said they made it really beautiful for me, because they told me that other mummies and daddies had to put up with what nature or God sent them. But actually they were blessed because they'd been able to choose their daughter. And they had a very special day together where they went along to a home and they chose their princess. And they were very lucky because the best girl in the world happened to be at that home on the day that they were able to pick. So she said, you can tell from me being brought up with that story that I have never, ever wanted for attention or love or warmth or support. And she said, I had a fantastic childhood. She said, but I do recall one particular incident, and this is my problem. She said, when I was about 6, and I do remember it was about then, she said, I was being naughty. I played up. And she said, my dad got to the point where he said, right, that's enough, up to bed. And she said, I stormed halfway up the stairs. And when I reached halfway up, I turned around and I said to him, you can't even send me to bed. You're not even my real daddy. And she said, I stormed up the stairs, immediately realized what I'd said, and burst into tears. And she said, I cried myself to sleep that night as a 6-year-old. And she said, the next morning I woke up and I had absolutely no idea how you could possibly say sorry for something that's like. She said, I wanted to say sorry, but I had no idea how to even start. So she said, I kept that in. And then as a teenager, she said, I would regularly have a few tears about the fact that I said something so nasty to my wonderful dad. She said, and I never ever found how I could possibly say sorry. And she said, even on my wedding day, she said, it ruined my wedding day. She said, I walked down the aisle of my own wedding day in floods of tears. And she said it was nothing to do with the fact that the man of my dreams was waiting for me at the end of the aisle, because he was, and he still is my husband 30 years later. She said, I love him to bits. She said it was nothing to do with that. She said, I know the only reason that I was crying walking down my aisle was because this man who was stood on my left-hand side, this man, my father, had given me everything. My dad had given me love and support and warmth. He'd given me food in my belly and a roof over my head. Nobody else in the world wanted. And I had absolutely no idea how this man, the proudest man in the world that day, could possibly forgive me for what I'd said to him when I was so young. She said it ruined my day. And she said it ruins every day. She said every single day I eventually end up thinking about it for some reason or another. She said I reach for the biscuits. That's my comfort. She said I tried to distract myself with biscuits. So I said, okay, that sounds pretty good. I get a grasp of what's going on. I said, if you could say sorry, what would you say? She said, I don't know. I said, okay. If you did know how you could say sorry, how would it be? And she said, well, I'd probably write him a letter. I said, okay, well, what would the letter say? And she said, well, it would say I love him and I respect him. I couldn't be more grateful to him. And I could not be more sorry for what I said. I said, well, you're doing quite well, because less than 30 seconds ago, you didn't have a clue what you were going to do. And now you're writing a letter, which sounds pretty good to me. Let's see what we can do about that. So in the actual hypnotherapy, because we were solution focused, we didn't actually touch on that particular issue at all. I just boosted her confidence and made her aware of her ability to do anything she sets her mind to. And then as she walked out of the house that night, I just planted the little seed. I just said to her, let me know how that letter goes. And she just smiled and she walked out. Well, the next week she came back for a weekly appointment. And on opening the door, her first response was, you're my hero. And before I could say anything, she stepped inside the door and she gave me a kiss on my cheek. And that's the reason I point out I did know the lady. I'm not used to complete strangers being that forward. So I did know her well enough, but she gave me a kiss on the cheek. And I said, wow, that's not an everyday occurrence for me. You must come and tell me why I'm suddenly this hero of yours. So when we got to my treatment room, she said, I wrote that letter. I said, wow, goodness me, did you? I can't imagine what made you do that. She said, no. And she said, I sent it too. Now, that's not such a silly thing to say, because to write something like that is one thing, but to actually have the courage to put it into the post is another thing entirely. So I said, wow, that is very good. Well done. I said, have you actually heard a reply from your dad? She said, yeah. She said it took 3 days to get to him because he lives up in Scotland now, right on one of the remote islands. But she said it took 3 days to get to him. And he phoned me on the day it arrived. And I said, oh, wow, that's good. I said, what did he say? He said, I haven't got a bloody clue what you're talking about. The crazy thing about that, of course, is that she'd said something when she was 6, and she'd been holding on to that regret and that remorse and those bad feelings that she'd created about the possibility of his reaction. He'd forgotten about it before she even got up the top of the stairs. It was just something, a flippant insult that a 6-year-old would bandy around. And she couldn't hurt him with those words, because actually he's not her real daddy, and it's not a surprise to him to hear that. So actually he'd completely forgotten about that whole situation, whereas she alone was reminding herself of it every single day. And luckily, of course, the beauty of the story is that when she continued to come and see me, as a result of that alone, she wasn't eating biscuits quite so often, and the desired effect of losing weight was achieved. So it's amazing how much we screw ourselves up and worry about what other people think and what other people are going to say, when in actual fact, half the time, they won't think or say anything. We're making news.
Absolutely, absolutely. I just wanted to say that Claire has put here what a beautiful way to explain adoption, and I absolutely think I actually had a glass of water at some point because I could feel myself getting slightly choked on that, so I thought, have some water, it'll be okay. And Claire also, Jane is watching, so hello to you, Jane. Claire said guilt can certainly eat away at you. I guess you find it as well that some people, and it could be families or not, that instead of eating, that they actually stop eating, so it's literally eating away at them. Do you come across that as well?
Oh, literally, absolutely. It might not be classed as a technical disorder at any point in time with individuals, but our food is our reward and punishment in equal measure. So some people will literally overeat themselves into oblivion because actually, that's the way that they make themselves feel uncomfortable, not only physically because of the amount of food they've eaten, but also because of how it will make them look. And likewise, people deny themselves the comfort of food because they don't deserve it, that obviously that has an awful knock-on effect when weight is lost as much as it is gained. So yeah, food is a very strange thing for us as human beings.
Absolutely. I don't know if I said, but Will is watching, and Claire's also put, I've dwelt on things and apologised to my mum later on in life, and she said not a clue of what I've been on about. And I think that, as you say, I think people often put what they feel they said is worse from the other person's perspective than it really is. And
Absolutely.
why do you think, we was talking about families here, and I guess keeping with it, but it can be with all sorts of relationships with friends and things. Why do you think that is, that we are built and, we have that negative self-talk, so much, and think worse about ourselves than other people see us?
I think that the negative bias in our brains is a natural response to most things anyway. If we study the brain to any length or depth, we find that actually the human brain, just like any other animal, is negatively biased as a self-protection technique. Everything's at a certain level, everything has an element of danger, because as long as we approach everything as dangerous, nothing can hurt us. But I think that the difficulty is we are, all of us, so obsessed with what other people think or their opinion of us and things like that, and it's absolute tosh. I often say to groups that I speak to, I can't imagine how important we all think we are to be so obsessed with the fact that everybody must be focusing on us. It's just crazy to believe that we are the center of everybody else's attention. Because if somebody said to us, you know, well, I bet you don't think very much of me, half the time we've not given them a thought. So we can honestly say that's not the case at all. So why we are any different to anyone else, I'm not sure.
Yes, absolutely. The other thing I want to get to, and this is really an explanation of how the mind and body affect each other. It's not the most positive of stories, but it does reflect well. And we'll go into more positive stuff afterwards, definitely. And I know the person's name, and you know when you do a live, you forget somebody's name, but the person with half a brain, if you can explain that story and what happened to him, because the original person with half the brain, he was the most kindest, lovely person, and from his accident became completely different.
That's right. Yeah, I think you're referring to Phineas Gage.
That's him. That's him.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's fine. Phineas Gage was a gentleman in the 1800s, and he was. Forgive me, the dates escape me as well as his name did for you. So, but 1800s, he was a railroad engineer. In the way that he was a train track layer, and he was part of a gang, a train. Not a gang as in trawling the streets for trouble. He was a train ganger. So he was actually the gang manager. And his specific role outside of his management role was that he was the explosives expert. So as the railroad was being laid through the United States, he was in charge of a gang that was laying the railroads. And his specific job was to put somebody else would drill a hole in the ground. Phineas would come along and put the dynamite into the hole. He would then pack it with wadding. He would then set the explosive charge off, and he would demolish the granite and stones on the way so that the railroad could be laid in between. So on one particular fateful day, Phineas is leading his team, and there is a fallout. Two of his colleagues have a really nasty fallout. They end up actually coming to physical blows. And Phineas is the sort of guy who will not tolerate that. He is just a pillar of his community. He was just such a lovely fella. He was God-fearing. He was teetotal. He was a committed husband. He was just a fantastic father, and everybody in the village that he lived in knew Phineas Gage to be the most wonderful fellow, absolute model citizen. Anyway, as a result of the argument, he split it up. He sent the two guys their separate ways, but the reports suggest that he actually felt guilty about the fact that he'd allowed his team to get to the point where they'd ended up having physical blows. And he was so preoccupied by the situation that he'd had to deal with that when he came to put the next explosive charge into the ground, dynamite down into the hole, but he forgot the wadding. And when he drove that dynamite home with the usual 6-foot metal bar that he used, unfortunately, as the bar went down into the hole, being granite, the metal sparked against the granite, set the dynamite off, and the metal bar came flying out of the hole like a mortar. It went through his left cheek, it removed his left eye, and it completely took out the prefrontal cortex, the frontal part, the frontal lobe of his brain. It exited, and the bar landed approximately 10 feet away. The difficulty for poor Phineas was that he actually remained conscious throughout the whole incident. And when the doctor turned up at the call of his team, the doctor turned up and Phineas Gage actually said to him, well, here's work enough for you today. As if to say, well, I'm going to keep you busy. You're not going to have anything else to do. He survived, and he did okay in the way of recovering. However, his moods had completely changed. It was the first indication that we ever had that the prefrontal cortex held onto our personality. And it was the first indication that started off studies that would suggest that the left prefrontal cortex, the bit that he lost, actually contains our lighter personality, our more pleasant personality, and our darker moods, our more aggressive moods, are likely to be held in the front right of our brain. Unfortunately, poor old Phineas became a drunken, abusive, violent alcoholic, a complete change in character. He ended up being divorced, he ended up being sacked, and he ended up as a pauper. His last jobs being that he would go around with some of the oddity circuses like Barnum's, and he would be photographed as the man with half a brain. And the photographs would always include him holding onto the bar that had done the damage when it went through his cheek into his head. So, yeah, we have to recognize that we do have a positive and a dark side. And that dark side can be pretty prevalent and very powerful if we allow it to take control of us.
It can. I think I've always said hello to Lindsay. Thank you for watching. Paul is here. Got a message which I will read out from Claire in a moment, but I just wanted to pick up on what you said about sort of the dark side. Now, you know, as brilliant as you know every person is, and you know, even like the work that we do, we all have that side that is not so good at times. It'd be interesting to talk about self-forgiveness and reconnecting with other people and loved ones if we've done something that we feel terribly guilty about, and you know, just to have that understanding that we have that dark side. So if you can add a little bit more to that, please, Andy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I often speak to my clients when they come to see me for the very first time, and I talk to them about the fact that we are all very, very prone to being quite angry with ourselves at times. When we go into a darker mood, and we all of us go into dark moods every day, every single one of us, and I will challenge anybody that says otherwise. We do now and again have those darker moments. Now, I'm not talking about dark as in you become sinister and threatening. I'm talking about the fact that your mood just drops. So when we look out of the window on a morning, and we've planned a picnic, and it's absolutely chucking it down with rain, there's a very good chance that we're not quite as happy to see that rain as we might be. That's the sort of dark mood we're talking about. Now, if we continue to allow that dark mood to be the prevalent one, then unfortunately what happens is that we start restricting ourselves to three different emotions. One is depression, one is anxiety, and the other one is anger. And anger can be directed towards other people, but it can also be more insidious when it's directed towards ourselves. And anger can come in lots of different guises. So it can be, you know, why on earth did I say that? Or why on earth am I so useless? Or why am I such a chump? Or so that anger can be really nasty. The difficulty with an internal anger is that when somebody is having a rant, if you had two colleagues at work and they fell out and they're having an argument, there's a very good chance that at some point you'd be the decent person to step in and say, that's enough now. That's enough now. You might even challenge them and say, that was naughty. That was a lie then. I'm sorry, but what you just said to that person was not true. And what you said in reply, well, that was just downright spiteful. There's no need for that. That was low. But the difficulty is we will say spiteful things to ourselves. We will say things to ourselves we wouldn't dream of saying to somebody else. We will lie to ourselves. We will tell ourselves we're useless. We will tell ourselves that our actions are unforgivable. So the difficulty with doing that to ourselves is that nobody else can hear us. So you could sit there now, Paul, I'm not suggesting you, but you could sit there right now saying, I'm useless. I'm absolutely rubbish at this. I don't know what I'm. But in actual fact, if somebody else like me was sat in the room with you, I'd be saying, are you kidding you? Are you kidding? What are you talking about? Useless? Behave yourself. And we'd have a chat. But the difficulty is when you're doing it to yourself, you have to be very, very present to be able to have that chat with yourself. And that's what I try to encourage people to do. Every so often, when you get that lucid moment in the middle of your giving yourself a good kick up the backside, every so often, you just get that lucid moment where you do realize what you're doing. And it's those little moments you need to grasp hold of and say, stop, stop, stop. Don't do that. Don't tell yourself off anymore. As for forgiving yourself, it's about just saying that none of us, unless we are really psychologically disturbed, none of us go out of our way to hurt people's feelings, certainly not hurt them physically. So actually, if we say something and it's the wrong thing at the time, if we say something in the heat of the moment, we have to recognize that actually, when that's happening, when we are feeling threatened, when we feel that our relationships are on edge, our brain lets us down. Because what happens is the second you have an argument with somebody who is close to you and you threaten that relationship, your brain says, I really hate this. I don't like this. This is really scary. I'm going to lose this person if I'm not careful. And as a result of that fear, your brain shuts down. The logical, rational, intelligent part of your brain that says, let's not say this because this would be really nasty. We better not say that because if we do, that's going to jeopardize things badly. That bit's gone. Conscience is not a question. You haven't got one. So at that moment in time, you become very defensive. The best form of defensive attack, as far as your brain is concerned. So you are going to be spiteful. You are going to say things that you don't mean. You're going to score points. And it's recognizing after the event when your conscience kicks in, which is actually your logical brain. What you have to do is recognize that that conscience is not judging you. It's just saying to you, look, this is what you could have said. This is what you shouldn't have said. So the best thing you can do is to be forgiving yourself is, one, apologize to the person involved, and two, just get over the fact that you did it. It's none of you will have done it on purpose. None of you would have scored points with that, going in with that intention. So it's just recognizing that it's a perfectly natural thing to lose your temper, and that to apologize for it is the best thing you can do.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is, I just want to say hello to Patricia. As you said, sorry I'm late. Thank you, Patricia, for joining in. It's really nice. And Lindsay says, I think self-forgiveness is one of the hardest things to move forward with. And I hope that what Andy has said there really does help. This is Claire from Facebook. She said, I left home at 16. I waved and smiled at my dad, who pulled up in the garage as I left. I had no idea I was leaving. I feel so much guilt even today. Waving and smiling at him that day tears me apart. He walked into the kitchen after I'd left to find my goodbye note. The guilt that I imagine of him emotionally rips me apart. So would you recommend something to Claire, like maybe writing a letter that's yeah, definitely.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that the nice thing about a letter is that you do. Some people say don't write letters. Some people say if you do that, then it's in black and white and it can never be taken back. But that's ridiculous advice, unless of course you're going to be really spiteful. If you're going to say things that you know damn well are going to hurt, then just don't write it. If you're just going to make an apology, if you're just going to give your side of the story, if you're going to give some form of explanation or apology, then why not write it? Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, it's love is. I like to see love as an invisible bridge, and it's never ever going to be broken. It's never going to be broken. It's the one that links up, in my humble opinion, with my deep spiritual beliefs. It's the one that connects us with those that have passed on. Our love is our constant connection with them. But yeah, Dad might be upset. Dad might be disappointed. Dad might be questioning his own actions and what he's done to deserve that. But you know, the best way of taking that upset, that hurt, and the questions away is just to write a letter that might have the answers there.
Yeah, exactly. Claire said, I suffer with anxiety and PTSD, and I often tell my nasty thoughts to shut up and push them away. So yeah, do you think that's a good thing, Andy?
Absolutely, it's really powerful. It's really powerful. I work massively with PTSD. I train other hypnotherapists in PTSD, and yeah, absolutely. It's very easy to go around saying that we can forgive and forget, and in actual fact, that's a lovely expression. However, it's completely and utterly impossible. We can forgive. What we can't do is forget. And the reason we can't forget is because our brain will never allow us to. The reason we remember things is because as much as we might forgive people for doing certain things or saying certain things, what we can't do is forget them, because actually what we have to do is make sure that we are protected from having that experience ever again. And if we were, so for an example, if a dog was to bite us and we instantly forgave the dog and forgot that it had bitten us, there's a very good chance that when we go back and see the same dog, he's going to do it again. And there's only so many fingers you can lose before forgetting that that dog is dangerous. It's a ridiculous thing to do. So our brain will not forget things. However, what we can do is just put it down to the fact that that's a memory that's protecting us, but it doesn't have to be that dark, nasty, mood-creating memory that we're allowing it to be at times. So actually forgiving somebody, even somebody that's done some of the worst things to you, is so, so powerful. It's incredible. Because when you forgive somebody, you won't forget it, but you do take the emotions and the out of those memories. If you don't forgive, all you're going to do is just eat yourself alive with the nasty chemicals that are coursing around your body when you're filled with malice. It's Malachi, the American actor Malachi McCourt, very famously said that holding on to malice for anybody else is like taking a poisonous tablet yourself and then waiting for the other person to die. And so if you don't forgive somebody, you can sit there and hate them all day. You can hate them for weeks on end if you want, but actually all they're doing, the other side of the equation, is just living their life at home. In the meantime, you're the one who's losing your precious time. You're the one who's coursing those stress chemicals around your body. You're the one who's hardening your heart, literally hardening your heart with the chemicals that you're creating in your body. And it's achieving nothing. You can hate them all you like. With an awful lot of people that we need to forgive, some of them will actually really get off on the fact that you hate them. Oh, that would empower them massively if you dislike them that much. Why give them that power? Why do that? So
exactly.
Forgiveness is one of the most powerful emotions that we can give ourselves, but it's also one of the most powerful things we can give to somebody else.
I've got a couple more questions coming in here. I mean, yeah, I think some people can put emotions into a letter better than words. And I think the good thing about a letter is that some people can just delete a text. Quite often, people won't throw a letter away. And sometimes if you're making an apology, they can say, I would just read your letter one more time. And then it's just enough that it was the right time for them to sit down and read that letter that it hits them. And then you can start that reconnection again. Would you agree with me there,
Yeah,
Andy?
absolutely. Absolutely. I would agree entirely. And the other thing that just popped up on one of the little comments here, Paul, which I can't let go, Lindsay has put, I've forgiven people, but I've had to remove them from my life as negative emotions, and trust is the key for me. Lindsay, I could not agree more. I could not agree more. Let me just clarify that. When I say that you forgive someone, it does not mean that you have to expose yourself to their negative emotions anymore. I've had very close relations have a negative effect on me. I've forgiven them years ago. No, we haven't re-established that connection. The way I would describe that, in the best way I can think of describing it, is that when I was at Sunday school as a kid, and I was forced to go to Sunday school as a kid, we were very often told the story of Daniel and the lion's den. And Daniel was put into the lion's den by the Romans, and he was left there overnight with the full expectation that the lions were going to devour him. But goodness me, he sat on it, he knelt down, said some prayers, and the good Lord saved him, and he was able to walk out of the lion's den the next morning. Did Daniel walk out of that lion's den and then say, well, that was a good crack, I think I'll give that another go? No, he didn't. No, he didn't. Once you've survived that onslaught once, you do not go back and give it a second go, because that's ridiculous. You can forgive somebody and move on. You can love them from a distance, but it doesn't mean that you have to expose yourself to the same danger to see how many times you can forgive them, because that's exhausting. So, Lindsay, I could not agree with you more. You do not have to expose yourself to that. You can forgive and move on. You can send them love and light and blessings and anything else that you might like to say, but you don't have to expose yourself to that negativity.
Agreed, fully and utterly. Lydia's here. She also asked a question, but I've got Patricia at the beginning here. A question before, and I always think people are going to abandon me. That's something I do come across a lot in my work, and people aren't going to abandon. But what can you do with that people and find those lasting relationships and connections so they don't feel like they could be abandoned?
I think, as well as forgiveness, I think we also need to, at times, and we need to do this sensibly, of course. We can't do it with everybody, but we do need to exercise a bit of trust as well. And I think there's a fantastic cycle of thought processes that that's been recognised that we go through, and that is that what we think affects how we feel, and how we feel affects how we behave, and how we behave affects how the rest of the world reacts to us. Now, we have to recognise that was a psychologist called William James that coined that one. But what we have to do is we have to recognise that if we think that everybody's going to abandon us, we're going to feel that lack of trust. When we feel that lack of trust, our behaviour is likely to come across as a little distant, because quite naturally, if we think people are going to abandon us and we feel that abandonment before it's even happened, our behavior is likely to be the sort that is going to protect us from that abandonment. So we're not going to engage as much as we might. We're not going to throw ourselves 100% into those relationships, because actually it might hurt too much when they do walk away. And the difficulty is when we don't commit because of that fear, then actually the rest of the world reacts to us as somebody that doesn't commit. Why would anybody want anything to do with you for any length of time if you're not going to commit fully? So actually, it could well be that the way we think about things are actually affecting the final result of what we really do want. So if we can only say, I trust people as much as I can at the time, and until they tell me otherwise, I'm going to love and trust them as much as I can, then actually that makes you feel love and trust towards them, and that they love and trust you back. That's going to make you behave so much differently. You're going to commit to those relationships. You're going to completely immerse yourself in their company, and it's going to be a nice two-way street in the way of all the love and feelings that way, and they're likely to stay with you because you're engaged. So that's never ever going to be an absolute written in stone contract that is going to continue. But we can't expect people to, we can't judge people thinking they're going to abandon us, because if that's happened in the past with someone else, that's tragic. But we would never want to be judged ourselves on the standards of other people. And so we're doing exactly the same when we feel that way. Just because one person's abandoned us and it's hurt us that much, we can't expect the same from everybody as a negative presumption. We have to trust people, or else what's the point? What is the point in engaging in any form of relationship if we can't put that level of trust in it until we're proven otherwise?
I really like what you said, and Pat, I hope that you've taken notes of that and do read it out as an affirmation, because that will really, really help. Are you as much of a fan of affirmations as myself, Andy?
Absolutely. Do you know what, Paul? This is genuine. You will notice that in my background, actually, the reason I'm sat here is because it's the best place for my signal. But this is my little, den, if you like. This is the spare bedroom in my house, and it's my art studio. I'm a really keen artist, and it's just so happens that all day today I've been making these, and these are little things that are tie-pins. And these are from my fellow hypnotherapist. Now, this is very relevant. I'm not trying to go on the hard sell. It's just amazing today. These are 4 Ps. And the 4 Ps are how you make an affirmation properly. So the 4 Ps stand for the positive. So the first P is personal, I. The second P is am. It's present. The second P is present. Fourth P, and I've jumped to the third one on purpose, I promise. The fourth P is the positive statement you're going to make, and the third P in the middle is the power up. So personal, present, and positive would be I am happy. It would be I am worthy. I am lucky. Why would you only want to be happy if you can be fantastically happy? So there's your third P, the power up. Don't just be happy, be fantastically happy. I am fantastically happy. I am incredibly lucky. I am definitely worthy. Those are the 4 P's. If you use affirmations like that, you cannot go wrong. The brain that knows no difference between imagination and reality will believe you. If you say to yourself, I am unforgivable, you will immediately get your wish is my command from your limbic system. And your limbic system is the one that gives you all the negative emotions through hormonal release. If you say to yourself, I am fantastically worthy, your same system says, your wish is my command. And it gives you all the feel-good drugs you need for the rest of the day. So I am a huge, huge supporter and believer in affirmations. And you know me well enough now, Paul, to know that I take that to the law of attraction and everything else too.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I think sometime if you're happy to do it, a talk about the law of attraction, because I know a lot of people that follow me love the law of attraction. So that'll be good. So at some point, maybe in the new year, and I know you're incredibly busy, so I really appreciate this time you're giving me now. There's lots of other questions I want to ask, but I think as people are watching, it'd be nice for me to ask the questions which are there. So Lydia has put, I can't ever forgive one chance with me. If someone annoys me or pushes my mental health where it makes me feel so low, that's it. I do struggle to forgive, but maybe I'm stubborn. So do you have any extra words you want to add to that, Andy?
Only the fact that this is not a judgment in the slightest. I don't know that lady. I have no reason to judge her, and I wouldn't do so anyway. But please listen to what I'm saying when I say to you that not forgiving someone is the most powerful thing you can do to make their influence on you worse. Worse. Oscar Wilde said, love your enemies. Nothing annoys them more. I love that. I love that. Love your enemies. Nothing annoys them more. When we look at the Roman emperors and they were watching gladiators, that we are all taught at school, whether it's a fallacy or an urban myth or what, I don't know, but we were all taught at school that the emperor could do his thumbs down or his thumbs up. And thumbs down meant that the person would die, and thumbs up meant that he was going to live. Let's think about how powerful that is. If you're going to take someone's life, if you're going to be negative around them, that's it. That's it. That's that's powerful. How much more powerful is it for you to be the one that can forgive? Every time that emperor did that, that gladiator owed him his life for life. That's far more powerful than snubbing out a human life. That's massive. So we have to see that being positive about something is far more positive and far more powerful for us than it is for anyone else. You are not forgiving someone necessarily for their benefit. What you are always doing when you're forgiving someone is benefiting yourself. If you sit there and you hate someone and it goes over in your head time and time again, which it will if you do not forgive, only you will get the mental health issues as a result of that. They haven't got a clue how much you hate them. You are eating your time and your body away with that hatred. Don't do it. Don't do it. It's so much more powerful to just forgive and walk away. But trust me, if nothing else comes back, please do that. Please just move on.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not forgiving and being walked over again. It's a case
No,
of forgiving and letting go of it, and then
absolutely. And remember what I said, Paul. You forgive somebody, we can never forget. It's not a fact that we make that choice. We cannot forget. So there's no reason for you to walk back and get hurt again. There's no reason for you to put yourself in that position again. You can maintain a relationship with that person and still not take the same route as that took you. So for an example, if somebody is a good friend and they hit you financially for something, or they take you somewhere and make you feel ridiculous in front of other friends or something like that, you can still maintain that friendship. But what you might not do is put yourself in that financial jeopardy with them again. What you might not do is go out with them socially so that they can ridicule you in front of other friends again. But it doesn't mean you have to completely disown them or step aside if that's your choice. If, on the other hand, you say, I'm going to forgive you, but I'm never going to give you that opportunity again, it's over, that's fine. That's right. It's nothing. Forgiveness is nothing about being walked Trust me, it really isn't.
Absolutely. It's taking back your power. And I know you have a very personal story, if it's something you're happy to go into, with somebody who worked with who just didn't seem to like you for some reason, but you were always really, really happy and positive. Is that a story you're happy to talk about
I
on
can
here?
tell you that story because I can sanitize that one beautifully. Yeah, I had a colleague who I worked with very closely. It was a colleague that I had to see every day. It was a colleague that would be passing on some information to me every day when I took over the management of the station. And that person's partner applied for a job, and I was on the interview panel. And unfortunately, that person's partner did not get the job. Call me old-fashioned, but I thought the person that got the most points at the end of the interview should. So that's where it went. But that was seen, I think, as a personal hit. It was seen as something I'd done on purpose, and it wasn't that at all. And so from that moment on, that person was the person I had to meet every day was very, very difficult, would barely speak to me, would grunt, just about pass on the information they had to at the time. And I recognized that that's not going to be my way. Now, I had the option. I could join in. I could be as much of an idiot as they were, but that is not my way. And so I took Oscar Wilde's advice. I loved my enemy as because that was going to be much more positive for me. When it says nothing annoys them more, I think Oscar Wilde, in his genius, was talking about winding people up. I don't say that. What I'm saying is that if somebody is hating you, if somebody is making your life difficult, if somebody is just taking you to the edge of your toleration, then nothing is more thwarting to their efforts than you not being in. To have a conflict, you have to have at least two sides. You can't fight on your own. So if you take one side of the fight away, the fight's gone. All I did every day was went in and said to them, "Hi, how are you? It's so good to see you again. I'm really pleased to see you. Look, you're looking well, and thank you so much for what your team's done. It's incredible. I've just been down to the cells, and there's not a single person not being dealt with already. I've looked at the logs, and they're all being cleared really well. Thank you so much. I've got so little to do with my team to take the shift on. I'm really grateful." And of course, they didn't like it. They didn't like it. They couldn't fight against that. And in the meantime, of course, everybody around me was saying, "That person is such an idiot. Why did they treat you like that? They never speak to you so often." But actually, it didn't matter what their opinion was. I knew what was going on. And if other people wanted to judge what was going on, that was up to them. But there was no way on this earth that I was going to be intimidated by somebody else's attitude. It's just not going to happen.
Absolutely. Are you happy? Because it's getting on for the hour now, and I can't believe how quick this hour has gone. So I mean, it's been absolutely fabulous, and thank you for that.
Oh, I've
Andy.
enjoyed it.
Excellent. Do you want to say a little bit about yourself? Give another mention about the book, which you did say at the beginning, which is a great read. Some of the workshops and training and things that you work with people, so if you can just use that time so people can get in contact with you and what you offer, please.
Yes, certainly. Thank you. That's very kind. I am a clinical hypnotherapist. I'm a solution first. And if anybody's interested in that, then they can, by all means, visit my website, which is andyworkman.co.uk. Really imaginative. Andy Workman, all one word, .co.uk. And I am blessed that I am able to provide some continued professional development training for therapists out there, particularly hypnotherapists. Though I have other people come on my courses as well, bless them. So I train people in post-traumatic stress. I train people in body language. I do some really nice interactive courses on public speaking. If you're scared of public speaking, then by all means, you'd be more than welcome to come and join me at some of those, because we can get beyond the fear of public speaking. It doesn't matter how you need to do it, whether it's at work or whether it's socially, that's fine, but we can do that. And every so often I run courses on the law of attraction and other things. So I will come to social groups. If you've got social groups that you run and you like speakers to come along, more than happy to do that. And I'm just welcoming anybody really to come along onto that website, andywork.co.uk. You'll find me on Facebook. My label there is Mindset Man. And I'm on all the other social media platforms as well. I must admit, I am not the most engaged person on social media. I'm 55, I'm elderly, it's all I can do to understand it, but I do my best. So by all means, if anybody wants to come and join me on any of those things, please feel most welcome.
Absolutely, absolutely. There is, so Patricia, there's other comments coming in. So I do apologise for every single person that I haven't read out your comments about. I wanted to go up with Patricia's one. We did mention something at the beginning, which she says, I can't forgive myself. You've already mentioned about self-forgiveness, so do go back and watch the beginning of this, Patricia, because I think you'll find that very useful. But is there anything else you want to add around that, or go back and see the beginning part of what we were talking about?
I think one of the things I'd like just to say to that one, Patricia, I swear to you now, if you actually think about what you're not forgiving yourself for, there's a very good chance that in that, just like that lovely story true story I told you about that lovely adopted lady, there's a very good chance that what you're trying to forgive yourself for has already been forgotten, if not never even acknowledged in the first place. There's a very good chance you're being very harsh on yourself, and that anybody else looking from outside would say, what on earth are you talking about? We will, the more we focus on something, the bigger it becomes. It's let me just leave, I love this one, so let me just leave you with this. I don't know where this came from. It suddenly came into my head one day when I was doing some hypnotherapy, and somebody was whispering in my ear, I'm sure. But your mind, quite literally, when your mind is like a magnifying glass, and your magnifying glass will make things bigger. So the more you look at it with your mind, the more you focus your mind onto any subject, whether it's positive or negative, it will get bigger. So the more you focus on your mind about something you cannot forgive yourself for, the more it will become unforgivable because it becomes bigger. But the other thing we have to bear in mind is that a magnifying glass can be used in two ways. Every single one of us as a primary school child will have been given a magnifying glass to look at things to make them look bigger. We'd have been looking at bugs and grasses and little stuff. But every single one of us, at some point in our history, will have had an exercise book covered in little holes with black edges. And that's because we learned that a magnifying glass can also become a laser, and we burnt our exercise books. No matter how many times we were told to stop doing that and look at the bugs, we definitely set fire to our exercise books. All of us did it. So what we have to bear in mind is that actually we can use our brain ways. And if we use our laser-like focus to hone in on those things that we cannot forgive ourselves for, those things we cannot forgive other people for, those things that are negative in our lives, we set an uncontrollable bushfire in our head, which will take everything to put that out. But the more that we do that, we also recognize that that laser-like focus stops us seeing all our blessings in our peripheral vision. When we're focusing on one negative aspect of our life, we forget our health, we forget our loves, we forget our relationships, our friends, our blessings, our food, everything. We forget it because we're focusing on that negative thing. If, on the other hand, we use that same laser-like focus to look at our positives, if we look at the things that in our lives that are blessings, then our peripheral vision that we lose are the things that are negative. So actually, that laser-like focus can actually set fire to the best firework display of positivity you've ever come across in your head, if only you use your magnifying glass to look at the right things. It's incredible how well our brain works, but it's so easy. Just a tiny little tilt of a magnifying glass will turn it from something that makes things look bigger, being able to set a laser. You can change that tiny little tilt from negative to positive and have an incredible effect on your own mental well-being.
Absolutely. I did put this up for a brief moment, but I thought I'd get it back up again. because it's a great comment from Lindsay. The brain is an amazing thing. Change your mindset, change your brain, laugh loud, or something like that. But that's so
Absolutely.
true. That's so true.
Absolutely. And
I'll
if
know it. Sorry, carry on.
I was going to say, sorry for the hard sell, but if anybody's wanting a couple of little exercises that they can use, my book Cavemen and Polar Bears is available on Amazon. It's $9.99, and you could. There's a little section in the back there which is filled with little exercises that you can use to try and help yourself to get your mental health back into a better place.
Absolutely. I'm just going to ask one more question because I realise that we've now hit the hour mark. But I mean, what you said before was absolutely brilliant. But this other thing, so if there's one small little thing that people can do each and every single morning to help themselves, I'll just open it up to all that you do. I mean, it's about relationships, but to move your life forward from a stuck state to a desired state, the first time when you wake up in the morning, what would that small change that people can do, what would you recommend?
Well, one of the first things I'd ask you to do is listen to one of those people that were saying in your lives, count your blessings. Because the amount of people that will say, nothing good happens to me, nothing good happens to me. Well, I will go out on a limb now and I will say that the vast majority of us watching this video today will have experienced the same blessings as I do every single day. So every single morning, I wake up in my home. Now, it might not be your own home, it might be a rented home, it might be a home you're sharing with somebody, but you wake up in a home. There are thousands, millions of people that have not got a home. I wake up in my bed. So I'm a blessed person because I might have a home, but maybe they haven't got a bed in it. I have. And there are thousands of people living underneath newspaper every single night. So I'm blessed. I wake up near my partner. Now, forgive me if you haven't got one, but I'm blessed. So a good deal of us have that blessing too. I get up and I put my feet to the floor. There are thousands of elderly people that can't do that. There are thousands of veterans who don't even have their feet anymore to put them to the floor. And when I get to the bathroom, I flush over a gallon of perfectly good drinking water down the toilet every single morning. There are some people in this world that don't have a thimbleful without a parasite in it. So before I even go down to eat my breakfast, I have food down there. Before I've even got there, I've been blessed 5 times before I've even left my landing to go downstairs. Most of us who say that there's nothing in their life that's good share those blessings. And if only we can focus on those blessings, it sets our mind off in a whole different spectrum of thought to be able to pick up on the good things in the day.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, Andy.
You're so welcome.
Yeah, do check out Andy's website. Follow him on Facebook. I can't recommend this book enough. Thank you so much for your time. And also, as well, another thing I highly recommend is if you get a chance to see Andy live, you will not be disappointed. You really won't.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andy.
No, thank you.
This is the last Wheel of Life before Christmas. Other guests are just now, because they've got young children breaking up from school, they've said, can you do these after? So the Wheel of Life will continue in the new year. I'll just have to do this again with you some other time in the future, Andy, because there's so much more that we didn't even, it's just barely scraping the surface of all the wonderful, wonderful things that you do.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. And I'd just like to say thank you to all those people that have taken the trouble to turn out, because I am so grateful to you all commenting and everything else. It makes it worth. I will always speak to Paul, and I will never ever shy away from that. But it's so much nicer to know that other people are out there too.
Wonderful, thank you. And I'll end the stream now. Thank you. Good night. I'll just speak to you for another 5 minutes afterwards, if that's okay, Andy.
No problem at all. I'm here.
Okay. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye-bye.